So, hello everybody, this is Bhante Joe here, and I'm just here outside the Padalangalakuti and thought to record a shorter water for the internet. So I thought that could start with just a little meditation, so you can lean forward a bit and arch the spine, and look about 3 feet in front, and close our eyes. And can focus in on the breath, can know when it's coming in, and know when it's going out. If we breathe in a long breath, can just know I'm breathing in a long breath. And if one breathes in a short breath, can just know I'm breathing in a short breath. And can focus in on the breath at the tip of the nose. And when watching the breath at the tip of the nose, it can be good to make mindfulness as continuous as possible. Being aware all the way through the in-breath. As the in-breath turns to the out-breath. All the way through the out-breath. And as the out-breath turns back to the in-breath again. Trying to make mindfulness as continuous as possible. And can just pose the question in the mind. What would be a really comfortable way to breathe right now? And then one can just let the body respond on its own. And before we finish meditating, can think thoughts of goodwill, wishing may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make the mind infinite, can make it unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, in every dimension. May all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. And you can open our eyes and do a short Awada for the internet. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Titiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Titiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Titiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. So I hope this finds everybody well, wherever it might be. And I've come down here to this kuti after a nice charika. They call charika a kind of wandering tour, where monks go wander on foot. They kind of don't take vehicles. And this is largely an imitation of the Buddha in the way that he lived his life. And this wandering was quite nice. Actually, it was my first time doing this alone. First time doing this road version alone. There's two basic versions. One is a version where one goes wandering through the forest and stays more or less in the wilderness, more or less at the roots of trees. And another one wanders along roads and stays at village temples. And so this is my first time going alone for, I guess, an extended period along this, for this road charika. So it was interesting. And it also had these kind of physical challenges to it. So you have these kind of bags, and you have also like carry an umbrella in case you need to sleep somewhere where there's no accommodation. You carry a mat, and one can carry a mat, one can carry kind of maybe an emergency blanket, and then toiletries, these kind of things. And then carrying these things, one has to develop this kind of muscular strength. So actually I wasn't used to carrying these all these different goods around for such a long distance. And there were times when I had these kind of like physical challenges where I kind of carry these bags and everything like that, and then I go stay in a place, and sometimes the place would have mold. And so my body got quite tired, and I started having these like runny nose, and wasn't sick but had these reactions to mold. And then also one can develop these problems with shoulders, or problems with the spine if one pushes oneself too much, carrying weight over long distances when one isn't used to it. But the nice thing about this in general is that if one does these things in a balanced way, it seems, then basically one's body can get stronger, bear the weight. So having stopped at several of these places, ended up basically it was one monastery that I ended up coming to, and it was after my nose started running, and I'd been walking, had thought to stay at one place for a few days, but ended up just staying for one night and then leaving again very early in the morning. And when I got to that monastery, they gave me a kuti that was very nice. I was actually the abbot's kuti, and I went to stay there, and I basically ended up falling asleep and resting for several days, more or less. It was kind of basically the body adapting to this new lifestyle, kind of to carrying bags around and to doing quite a lot of walking when it isn't used to it. I have a third grade teacher that I sometimes talk to on the phone. He was my third grade teacher, and he's very into growing plants. And he was telling me one time about his plants, and he has these plants. He starts from seeds, I think, and they grow up. And he says, if you keep a plant inside and it's not exposed to the wind, when it grows, it doesn't become strong. And so when you take it and put it outside, if it has grown inside its whole life, then when it gets exposed to wind, it gets blown over or something right away. It gets easily kind of destroyed by the elements. But on the flip side, if one takes this plant and puts it outside and basically exposes it to a lot of wind or a lot of elements when it's still very small, then that plant will die as well. So there's a medium, there's a balance in basically trying to gain in new skills or new habits and new abilities. many monks, myself included, what one will tend to do is try to push oneself quite hard and then injure oneself. It's kind of just basically endure too much and injure oneself, especially if one is a young monk. This tends to happen. So what tends to be the good approach to do when one is doing something new is to do it a little bit at a time, kind of one step at a time, kind of maybe try out a shorter version and see what its effects are, and then a little longer and a little longer. So this obviously has parallels with the way that one moves forward in one's practice. When one is kind of trying to practice meditation, this kind of has good parallels with the body, and good parallels with training the body, and that if one tries to put too much effort into one's meditation, then one can basically sink. It can basically become too much of a burden on the mind. What tends to happen a lot of times, or what can happen, is that some people go on retreats and go on these intense retreats for periods of time, and then when the retreat is over, they go back to the things that they did sometimes they were doing before, but kind of sometimes even one may even indulge more in bad habits that one had after the retreat. And it's basically this kind of bounce back effect that one has. So in some cases as well, one can really overexert oneself in one's practice for a period of time, and then sometimes people completely fall off of their practice. So I had a friend, and he was quite a good runner, and he was telling me that he used to do all this running. We actually lost touch for quite some time and then reconnected a while back. And he told me this funny story, how he kept increasing the amount of running he was doing, and then he decided he was going to run a half marathon. And then his father said to him, "Oh, you're no son of mine," kind of just joking. And so he ran a full marathon. But he said he never ran again after that. So this can be the way that it is if one builds oneself up to things in a way that's unbalanced, in a way that is not sustainable, in a way that one hasn't developed the stability or the support structures necessary to make that part of one's lifestyle. So the Buddha has a teaching about meditation. I think it's in a sutta on the goldsmith, kind of maybe. Don't quote me on that. But there's a sutta where the Buddha, he describes how sometimes one will look on the mind with equanimity, one will know when to exert the mind, and one will know when to, basically various things that one does to the mind, kind of look on it with equanimity, exert the mind, and maybe calm the mind. And he says that there's a time when people put forth quite a lot of effort. They basically gain peace of mind through forceful fabrications of exertion. And he says there's a later time when they attain the concentration that's peaceful, sublime, etc. And so what it seems the interpretation, what one can take from the interpretation, is that more or less that one can put forth quite a lot of effort in one's meditation practice and get results from it through these very forceful fabrications. But when one learns to develop meditation or sila or dana, when one learns to develop one's practice as a lifestyle, step by step, moving forward and trying not to fall back, then this is when it becomes kind of a lifestyle. And one can gain concentration of peaceful, sublime. In other words, there's kind of monks who they describe kind of being able to enter jhana anytime they want, and kind of they'd be able. The various kind of habits that one tries to develop in one's practice, these things become second nature, and then one can move on to other ones. So the Buddha teaches in this way that basically his teaching, his training is a gradual training with no sudden drop-offs. It's because one needs to develop support and stability structures in a balanced way, in a way that one is moving forward in an appropriate pace. One isn't kind of stopping and stalling and falling down. One isn't kind of rushing forward and dropping. But one is moving forward at a steady pace. So the Buddha has a simile where he says he crossed the flood, not rushing, not staying still. When he stayed still, he sunk. When he rushed forward, he was spun around. He was kind of crossing at an even pace. So in a similar way with our practice, if one learns to gauge what qualities in the mind one is trying to develop to move forward in one's practice, and then one learns to develop them in a steady way, kind of testing it out. What effect did this have? And when I put forth this much effort, am I able to maintain it? And am I able to sustain it? One learns to develop in such a way that one can sustain one's practice. And similar to the body, the mind is developed this way. So if one gradually develops the body, then it can develop support structures and become stronger. If one grows the plant inside and maybe exposes it to wind and air and the elements from time to time, then when it grows to be an adult plant, it can withstand the elements. And in a similar way, when we train our mind, we want to train our mind at an appropriate pace. We want to have goals that are high standards, that are good standards. We want to have the goals that are set in the canon. But when we train ourselves towards these goals, we train ourselves towards them with patience, not moving forward too fast, not standing still, because when one moves forward, one gets spun around. When one stands still, one sinks. So one wants to try to move forward at the appropriate pace, cross the flood at the appropriate pace, develop the skills of charika at an appropriate pace, and then one can achieve, one can move forward in one's practice, not dependent so much on these forceful fabrications of exertion, but one can move forward towards states that are peaceful and sublime, and basically part of one's lifestyle. Okay, so leave that for reflection, and hope that everybody has a great day wherever it might be, and wishing all the blessings of Dhamma practice.